Today is Thursday, which means we have Matt Hartley with us to talk about nothing but Linux and Linuxy stuff until the end of this show on Thursday. My name is Brian. That guy is Matt, the Matt Man Hartley. Matthew, how have you been, man? You weren't with me last week, so I had to hang out with the Linux Gamer. It was so hard. I'm just kidding. Linux Gamer's awesome. But
I got trapped in my little hyperbaric, or the little the vacuum pack chamber you use to prevent yourself from aging.
The John
turns
Travolta
out it was actually
bottle?
Well, it turns out it was actually just an old refrigerator. It lacked a inside lever to let me out, so I was trapped in there all week.
That could be worse. Those can survive nuclear blasts, even in like the 1930s. If you're Indiana Jones, it's fantastic. We have a bunch of cool questions that all came from Mastodon and Twitter, which is fantastic because apparently I ignore all other social networks. I realize we've been doing this for a few months now, and I have never put out a poll to say, hey, people on Google Plus or wherever else, what questions do you have for us on Linux Thursday? I just asked Twitter and Mastodon. I didn't intentionally ignore Google Plus, but now I'm going to. So that's pretty fantastic. This episode is sponsored by System 76, by Pogo Linux, and of course, viewers like you. And before we go into this too much further, I did this review on Monday. I'm going to put this right in front of Matt's face. I keep putting it upside down.
Oh, let's make arms come out. Here we go.
Look at that. That's a big freaking laptop right there. This is the System 76 Oryx. Gorgeous. So people had questions for me. I tried out a few distros on this beautiful bad boy, right? Which it really is just a beast of a gaming laptop. I mean, it's got the GTX 1070 with 8 gigs of RAM in it, which is absolutely insane, at least to me. But it's fantastic. So I decided I'd listen to as many people as I could. I tried installing Arch on it. Everything worked great. I had a hard time getting the NVIDIA drivers to run in Arch, but I'm not really an Arch guy. My guess is someone wouldn't have that problem if they knew Arch better. I had no problems with the NVIDIA drivers under OpenSUSE or Debian or anything like that. Stock Debian runs great on here. It ships with Ubuntu, but everything else seems to run fine. I mean, I didn't put Gentoo on here,
I was going to say, if you put Gentoo on it, you'd still be installing. But
I didn't try that. But and one guy was like, you know what? I would like to know how long it takes to compile all of Debian on there. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, man. I am way too lazy to do that. I thought about doing a compile test just to do the kernel, just to see how that went. I didn't do that either. It's a really fast machine, though. I don't know. But anyway, that's from System76.com. I've got to give that guy back tomorrow, I think, which is kind of bumming me out because it's a really good video production laptop, and it's not a bad one to have just around the studio. So, I mean, I've got okay equipment, but it's not as beefy as that guy. It's not. But System76.com, they sponsor the show. They make that cool Linux-powered laptop. Go check them out. All right. Yeah. Now, before I get into the questions, is there anything you want to talk about today, Matt? I want to make sure I fit in your needs. Matt's needs are important to me.
Let's see. Got my butt groove.
You got your butt groove.
Got my lukewarm milk. I think we're good to go.
Do you really have lukewarm milk again?
No, it's actually cold.
But it's milk.
It's milk.
That's what I forgot. I forgot to grab a beverage. I'm going to have dry mouth the whole time. That's all right. Oh, it's all right. Let's get into some questions. Let's start over on Mastodon. We got a question here from KZ650 If the Linux kernel were closed source, would you still use it? If not, then what would you use? If so, then why? I like his follow-up questions. Those are fantastic. How about you, man? If the Linux kernel were closed, would you use it?
I'm evil, so yes. And that's not because it's not because I have a love or a hate for one thing versus another. It's just strictly, I'm totally evil. Evil Spock.
A little bit.
It's strictly, my usage of Linux from day one was very much from started out curiosity and then practical. So yeah, I probably would. If something open source came along that was comparable, I would probably switch. Yeah. But honestly, for me, it's just what I know, and I'm lazy. So,
How about
That'd
this?
be me.
What if every operating system were closed source and there were no open source operating systems, but all of them that exist today exist right now? Every operating system ever always existed. You can choose any one you want. They're all closed source. Which one do you choose?
I'd still go with Linux. Simply, I think it's the control of it. Because even if they lock the hell out of it down, like you pick your most, controversial distro of all, you still have more control than you do with other operating systems.
What is the most controversial distro of all?
I can't. I actually said, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking there really isn't anymore.
Talking like Lindos and Linspire.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say one time Linspire or Xandros would have probably qualified. And there's probably a few other ones. People like to say Ubuntu, but I don't think so. I just don't.
And
I don't think that really counts. So,
Ubuntu used to have a desktop that wasn't terribly configurable, but now they're going back to GNOME, so it's a configurable desktop again. So really,
exactly.
Yeah. I don't know.
There you go.
For me, if Linux weren't open source, I would still go to an open source system first. If Linux weren't an option, the easy route is just say, well, then I'll run like one of the BSDs. I'll run like FreeBSD or something, because it's kind of like for the most part similar. But honestly, if no Linux or Unix-y like system like that, I'd probably go over to Haiku. Just to go something fun. Like I just switch over to something still free software, but fun and goofy. I'd probably go that route. If there were no operating systems that were open source, I don't know what the hell I'd do. I just reviewed the new version of OS 2. Maybe I'd use that. No. I'd probably just stick to Linux. That would be
pretty cool, actually.
I'd probably still go Linux because, I know it performs well. It runs on a ton of hardware. So even if it was closed, I'd probably still go with that. But that would bum me out big time. So thanks for the bummer question, 50 Cent.
Yeah, what's up with that? Jeez, guys.
Mike Stone asks, hey, Brian, what apps do you use on your Pocket Chips? I have Rainbow Stream installed for Twitter. Nice choice. But Surf seems a little weak for web browsing. Most importantly of all, how do you access Mastodon? All right, I'll take this one because I don't think you got a Pocket Chip or anything, right? You don't have the chip.
No.
All right. Where's my chip? All right.
There we go.
So here's a Pocket Chip. I've actually got 3 of them in the lab right here because I'm doing all sorts of projects with them. This one is actually a modified Pocket Chip already. It's got part of the faceplate ripped off and whatnot. But these are great little handhelds. And it's running stock Debian, so you can put anything you want on there. I have put XFCE and Firefox on there. The performance isn't terribly fast, but it works in a pinch. So does things like gedit. AbiWord works pretty well. The only real downside is the screen resolution on these screens is not very high. So if you have a normal desktop environment, even a small lightweight one like XFCE, you don't have a whole lot of space left for things like Firefox, or especially apps with big toolbars to start with. You get like this top panel ends up being your panel. Then this next third of the screen is like your Firefox toolbar. And so you're left with like maybe half the screen for web browsing content, and that just doesn't work that well. So I use text mode web browsers for everything on those.
There you go.
W3M is my favorite. It's the way to go for me. I just make sure I have W3M and Nano, or just use whatever text editor you like. Mastodon is a little hard to use on that. I had a hard time with text-based web browsers using Mastodon. Mastodon's got too much... it's gooey, and that's my only real complaint with it. Rainbow Stream's a great way to go for Twitter, but yeah, for that, normal web browsing, W3M is my way to go. Plus, W3M, you can have inline images still.
Really?
It's pretty nice. I mean, granted, you don't really use that a whole lot, but if you have things in image tags, you can still see pictures that people post on Twitter and whatnot. It's actually pretty nice. So that's the way I go, man. Right.
No, you got me interested now. When you said images, I was just like, wait, what? Wow.
Oh yeah, dude. No, it's the Pocket Chip is an astonishing.
I use a lot of browsers in the command line, but not like that.
Where is? You know what? Wow. I'll be showing this in another video.
I'm looking at some images now. Yeah. So wow.
I'm working on modifying this one. I got a. Do I have it here? I think I've got it right here. So the Pocket Chips by default don't have speakers in them, right? I got a little pack of really tiny, cheap little speakers that I'm basically going to be hot gluing inside the back of these case to give it audio. The keyboard needs a little bit of improvement, so I'm doing a bunch of different projects on them, which will come out in a video tomorrow. Actually, this is a good point for me to mention this. My Lunduke Labs show for this week got pushed to Friday because the Arca OS review I did on Tuesday didn't come out until Wednesday because of everything else. And then I wanted to give it some time before I put another video up. So I'm just kind of bumping the Wednesday show to Friday. And I've got some updates on things I can do with the Pocket Chip for that one in there. But
Nice.
it's a pretty nice little handheld. It does a lot of stuff. The only real downside.
I had some thoughts.
Yeah,
you mentioned adding speakers to it, so clearly there's going to be a sound system. Have you considered investing in proper hydraulics and the neon lights so that you can really get the full effect? So boom,
Actually,
boom, boom.
I was on a video call with the Pocket Chip guys like a week or 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to them about some of the projects I was working on. I wanted their feedback and their input and all that. And the guy holds one up next to him that he had with electroluminescent wires, with EL wire all around the inside of it.
Dude.
Oh, it looks so cool. I'm like,
so naturally you're thinking, dude, how do I hook up on that? Yeah, right.
Oh, I've already got some coming. I've got some EL wire coming.
Nice.
So I'm putting a nice keyboard on this, speakers, EL wire. I'm just going full out. But they did
cool.
that. It's just
because then it becomes a conversation piece when you go to events and such. Because you pull this out.
Yes. You know what I should mention, and this is fairly rad. If you go to the Pocket Chip website, this is becoming an ad for Pocket Chip all of a sudden. If you go to the Pocket Chip website, they've got this thing right now where they're trying to promote the Pocket Chip. And so they're like, you know what? What are some cool kind of steampunky, retro-y things people could do with this? So, so ad hoc networking. So no base station, just Pocket Chip to Pocket Chip to Pocket Chip over the Wi-Fi, playing the open source implementation of Doom. I think it's PR Boom or something like that.
That's awesome.
So they have pictures of them outside around a campfire holding this up, playing Doom. I'm just like, that is awesome. That is what technology should be. That right there is living, my friends. So anyway, that's fantastic. No, the keys. Anyway, that's enough. I'll be talking more about the Pocket Chip tomorrow. Cool. But yeah, W3M for web browsing, and Mastodon is really nothing. There's a lot of holes in command line functionality. There's just holes there. I prefer to live in the terminal, and Mastodon is a hard one. I also use Wire for a lot of instant messaging. There's no terminal client yet, though supposedly someone might be working on that. And it's all open source, so it'll probably be coming at some point. But there are some holes. Anyway. All right. Nunix. You never discuss my file system question. Apparently, I ignored this guy's file system question. But for a change in pace, how awesome is RISC-V or Power or MIPS? Why do you think that these architectures don't seem to have as much interest behind them as ARM? Are we doomed to fundamentally run insecure-based systems such as x86, AMD 64, and ARM proprietary architectures?
Well,
what do you think?
Okay, so, and I'm going to give a very generalized answer. I would first say it's not about one being better than another. I think a lot of it is segueing over to a certain type of film industry that is shows a little more skin than most.
Okay.
They adopt a certain video standard, and that generally becomes the standard. We see a lot of that in technology as well. So I think that ARM kind of
the adult entertainment industry needs to adopt a processor type. And then we'll all follow?
I mean, people in porn only use ARM. I mean, everybody knows that. No, I'm just kidding. No, in all seriousness, I think that basically the tech industry adopted, basically gravitated toward ARM. And I think once certain key players end up going that direction, the rest of it comes with it. I think that's a lot of it. I think we saw the same thing with like the Intel versus the early old school AMD chips. You know, that I think we saw certain key players kind of lean toward Intel. And I think one of those players, honestly, really kind of pushed the envelope a little bit when they switched over was Apple. I remember when they went from PowerPC to Apple, that really kind of, they were already kind of doing this, and that kind of just shoved it over even harder. So I think we see a lot of that type of thing. So that's probably part of it. I wouldn't say that one's better than another. I think they're just different, and they have different interest points.
I get that. There's kind of ebb and flows.
Yeah, exactly.
realistically, like AMD had been processor wise, at least for the nerds, kind of written off, and then Ryzen happens. And then, you can't throw a stone without a tech YouTuber or blogger writing 15 articles and videos about Ryzen, which honestly grew a little bit tedious and ridiculous after a while because the general result was it's a pretty good processor.
Well, clickbait. We all know about it. You got to have those titles.
But I mean, everyone, we were all clamoring for news about Ryzen's the Ryzen processor line. And realistically, you'll see a big boost with that. And, and ARM, honestly, there was interest in ARM. There was a bunch of different like prototyping boards and whatnot, but it didn't really hit that mainstream Shazaminess until the Raspberry Pis came along.
That's a good point.
And then boom, you know what? It's like that with RISC-V, right? So the RISC-Vs, maybe, are lingering in pseudo obscurity right now. They're great processors. They're all open, which is fantastic. And there are projects and companies underway to get those on nice desktops and whatnot. But it's going to take one of those things, like a pocket, not a pocket chip, like a Raspberry Pi or something like that, to get it and really just put it into mainstream in our eyeballs. So it'll change. It always changes. Everything changes all the time. It's like in distros. Ubuntu has been king for a while, at least in terms of mind share. But it's only really been king for a couple of years. And most Linux distros are only king for a couple of years before someone else supplants them entirely. I mean, before Ubuntu, I mean, there were, Red Hat was king. Like Fedora was like top of the line before it was Fedora, I guess. But still it was, it was king. And I mean, things change. Things change a lot. So my guess is, I like ARM processors. I like x86 processors. I like RISC-V processors. Honestly, if I could do everything here in RISC, I totally would in a heartbeat. Because it's all open, but there's just not a lot available for it right now. Maybe at some point.
Hopefully.
Oh, it'll happen. It always changes. Things change all the time.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I don't like change. Okay.
D Preacher asks, where do makers of tons of free and open source applications in the desktop, primarily Linux, that are not part of popular desktop environments or commonly talked about, get their drive to keep going at making them better? It's sad sometimes that I would ignore so many programs on the desktop to find some app on the phone or some web service. It's fun to discover so many new packages, but kind of infeasible to spread the word without feeling spammerish. That's generally pretty hard. Just to dive in on this one a little bit, and then I'll get your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
So, outside of the Linux world, in ye olden times, like 7, 8, 15 years ago, there were a number of websites that focused on downloading new packages of software. There was a website on the Mac side called versiontracker.com, which I don't even know if that's still around anymore. And then there was there was download.com that was mostly on the Windows side. They did other stuff too at that time, And that was a place where people would go to, and there was a bunch of others, but where people would go to and they'd see the latest. They'd have it all categorized. It would be from, that would be packaged by no particular vendor of any kind. It was just like a free-for-all of new software updates and ratings and whatnot. And so it made it really easy to discover new packages. On the Linux side of things, we got so used to relying on the repositories for our distributions, we don't have that. There are things like the GNOME software centers, and Ubuntu tried their hand at a software center, and the elementary guys have an app store. But realistically, they're all very distro specific. They're the packages available for those specific distros. There's no like repository you can go to, at least not any popular ones, that list every application made for desktop Linux packaged up in app image format. That would be wicked cool if there was. But it makes it really hard to find stuff. I don't know. I don't know what you think, but that's what I think happened.
Yeah,
we just didn't bother with it. We just went repositories and just missed out on that.
I think I would counter in that it's better than it used to be. And I used to actually do, I mean, it's still kind of it's very hit and miss. And they are most of them are very Ubuntu specific that do exist. But there's like a getdeb, for example, for Ubuntu users. That's still a thing. It's the closest thing to download.
About that.
That's probably the closest. The second best, in my opinion, that I actually use to find out what's new and latest and greatest is Alternative 2.
That is a
That's
good
pretty
one.
good.
Yeah.
And then there's a third one that's totally escaping my brain right now, but it'll come to me later after the show, I'm sure. But there are a couple options out there you can check out. But generally speaking, we're left to wiki pages, recommended blogs, things of that sort.
Yeah.
It's very much in that way. No one really, in my personal opinion, actually discovers software from a software center. I don't believe that for 2 minutes.
No.
I've never seen anyone actually do that, because when someone looks for an application to do a thing, they go to Google. So to promote something in that capacity, you're generally going to want to write a blog post and then try and do a reasonably good job of describing what that app does. And with any luck, it'll show up in the first 20 results, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and the other way people find out about this stuff is from articles. And the articles don't get written about applications, at least usually, unless the authors, the writers, the journalists get a press release or a contact from a developer behind the application.
And even then, it's hard to do.
And it's hard to do then. But like you know, most free software developers suck so bad at marketing their own stuff. They can't do it. They can't do it. Like I've lost track of how many times you'd see an application, and I'll just make up an example here to showcase this.
Sure.
But let's say like Firefox, right? Let's say we've never heard of Firefox before. We don't know what it does. And it's just a great web browser, right? Great web browser with fast load times. Okay, great.
Yeah.
No one's ever heard of it before. They don't write a press release. But in order to get the word out, they go to Reddit and they post a link to their download page, and they say Firefox using version 5.76 of GHTMLI. And then they'll just leave it at that, as if that meant anything to anyone on Earth except for them. And free software people do this all the time. And I understand why they do it. They're nerds. They're speaking nerds, but they're speaking their own kind of nerd, and they haven't yet learned how to tell other people about it in a way that they'll grab onto. And there's only so many people that are good at that, it seems like. And there's not one of them on every project. So these projects that are doing amazing stuff linger in obscurity for far too long because no one knows how to spread the word about them.
Exactly. And that's really it. I think that there's a dependence on journalists because of that. I think that we thankfully now have much more Linux journals to draw from, so that people promoting projects can do that. But when I worked with Patrick on Webcam Studio, that was why I came on board, because I was like, why the hell does no one know about this? It's really cool. For its time, it was neat. I was excited about it. I wanted to share it with people. And that's kind of how that happened. So I guess the answer is, if you find a project that you're like, dude, this is incredible, reach out to the developer and offer to help them with documentation and promotion.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. You know? That is the right thing to do. Because it is amazing. People ask all the time, how can I get more involved in free software?
That's it.
People are like, I don't have testing skills, or I don't have development skills, and I don't want to do documentation. Just evangelism. Being able to go out there and represent an application or a desktop or whatever is amazing and is so helpful. Offer it up. Maybe not all projects would be amenable to that, but most will. Most
would. Yeah. I mean, reach out to them however you can get a hold of folks, and be willing to offer also, this is huge, to offer support. If you're good at using the app, get into the forums of the IRC and answer questions.
Yeah.
That's also huge, because that was something we ran into with Webcam Studios, that a lot of people had some issues on usage and wasn't really sure how to make that work. And so I tried, when time allowed, to do that.
And I didn't even know about Webcam Studio until you pointed it out to me. I mean, that's exactly it.
On a previous show. Yeah, I actually reached out to you guys. Yeah,
you did. And
that's actually how we. Yeah, that's actually.
I think that is how we first interacted. I
think it is how we met. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
Thank you, Webcam Studio.
Isn't that wild?
Cheryl asks, I don't know if it's an awesome question. I ask people for only awesome questions, but I really want to know the most awesome things I can do with the new Pocket Chip I just won. I'm only a medium level nerd, but I have to up my game now. The forces in the cosmos seem to demand it. Well, there's that whole campfire play Doom thing. That's pretty rad. Honestly,
that's kind of cool.
If you go to the Pocket Chip website, I think it's Get Chip or something like that. Just search for it.
Google it.
You'll find a blog there, and they've done a great job of posting videos and tutorials on how to do a bunch of random things, from installing emulators to modding the case and the hardware for it. And just keep watching this show, because I'm doing a bunch of hardware hacks on mine that you can always, follow in my very, very ridiculous footsteps there. Oh man. I don't know if I can pronounce this name. Kurzaistov Jankowski. I think that's right. Okay, Jankowski. His Twitter, his Mastodon handle is Wait for Death. I'll just say Wait for Death, despite that being super sad. What's the most awesome audio player? I ended up on Audacious as a very light yet full featured player. But what are Brian and Matt using? What are you using, man?
If I'm not using anything webby related, like I'm not using any type of proprietary web related music, I really dig Clementine, even though it's got a KDE Amarok core to it. I just really like it. It's really slick.
Even secondary to that, what do you hate KDE or something?
No, I don't hate. It's not that I hate KDE. It's just if I'm running a GTK based desktop, I have to install a bunch of libraries for it and all that sort of thing. So
I know Matt Hartley hates libraries. He hates them. He just hates libraries.
I hate everything. I hate libraries. No, I think Clementine's probably my go-to. Right now, I've been really into, because I like to piss people off, I really enjoy using that web-based, is it Lightning or whatever the hell it is, that the wrapper that they use for different web applications. Google's got
Electron.
One. Electron. I know how much everyone hates Electron,
because
so I try to use as many. I try and use as many Electron applications as possible, and then talk about it because I know it really irritates people.
Damn,
a couple of reasons why I don't care. I don't have a computer from 1995, so it doesn't really affect me. So I mean, and I'm going to segue on a rant real quick for this. Look, if you hate Electron, that's cool,
and I do.
Make an application. Make that functionality in a native application, or shut up. I mean, that's kind of my.
You censored
philosophy.
Yourself there. I like that. You wanted
really just about
swear words were coming out. I heard that.
But it's seriously a matter. It's just like, good grief. Do I like it? No. Do I care? No. Does it do its job? Is it a freaking glorified web app? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't seek it out. I seek out functionality. I will always prefer a native application. But if one doesn't exist, I'm not going to go out of some high and mighty sitting on a throne hoopty-toopty nonsense. I don't care. I've got 32 gigs of RAM. I'm going to use some of it. I don't care. I mean, jeez.
Well, over here on my high and mighty throne, while I am going hoopty-doopty, I am in the terminal using CMUS. It's the king of command line music players. It's great. I load up my MP3s, transfer them around. I put them all up in my Nextcloud server. I can easily sync them between all my devices, including my pocket chip, my phone, my tablet, my laptops, all that stuff. And I keep all my MP3s all with me. Before I was using that, Clementine actually is a really good music player. Matt's right. That one's really nice. If you want a GUI music player, that one. There's a couple others that I've tried that are pretty good, but I'm a command line guy, and so I like CMUs. Sure. I like lightweight. I like it simple, and I used to use a command line Spotify app too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like that. But one last thing I would say that is that as much as I'm into the whole Google music thing or whatever, if I can get out of that, I do have a Subsonic, I think it's Subsonic, web server here at the house that I can actually play music off of and stream and basically build my own. But they don't really have a real great way of downloading a metric ton of playlists out of that. So me trying to duplicate that's kind of a headache. That's why I'm doing that. So I would absolutely rather. You don't have to justify, my friend. It's cool. You be you. Matt does Matt. Bonus question from Wait for Death. This is a good one, man. Yerba mate or caffeine or milk if there will be Matt Hartley.
I take coffee all day. I drink milk to kind of tone down my intake of coffee. By like the third or fourth pot in an hour. After a while I start like twitching out, so I gotta kind of like tone it down a little bit, and little moo juice goes a long way. It also settles my tummy.
Also settles your tummy. So I'm not a coffee drinker, not really.
Sure.
And I don't really like yerba mate either. I like green tea or black tea or milk.
Cool.
Actually, I just time shared part of a cow. This is a totally unrelated thing.
What? I want to hear it now. Tell me about this now.
So I think it's weird. I'm trying to figure out exactly where to start with this. I would not classify myself as a prepper type guy, but just the same, I think it's weird how much unlike milk the things that we get in the supermarket are that
Yeah.
they call milk.
Yep.
They're just so heavily processed that they don't taste like milk. And
Yeah,
so, and I really like milk. I mean, this, you get a nice big, whole milk from the grocery store, and it's still pretty yummy and all, but it misses that milk. And so it doesn't taste like you just squirted it out of a cow's booby. And I want that flavor. And so
Okay.
at least here in the state of Oregon, the way you have to do it, if you want raw milk, actual milk, like the way cows drink it and the way humans drank it for all of history until very, very recently.
Like last 20 years or whatever.
You actually have to own the cow. You can't buy it from someone.
Yeah,
I can't go to the farm and say, sell me a bottle of milk. And so what farmers will do, and there's a great farmer kind of near where I live here outside of Portland, and they basically timeshare me a cow. So I pay them X dollars per month, and in exchange for that, I get 2 big bottles of fresh squeezed fresh milk. Fresh squeezed milk. That's ridiculous. Per week. And it comes out to really not that much different than just buying milk in the grocery store. But price-wise, maybe a tiny bit more expensive because there's legwork involved. But so there's like farmer's market. So once a week, I go down to the farmer's market. He brings the milk down, hands me the bottles. I hand him back the old bottles, and we go our separate ways. So I finally got the ability to drink actual, real, honest-to-goodness milk, which I am so excited about. I get my first order comes in on Sunday, so I get actual milk from now on.
That is pretty cool.
So exciting.
I mean, growing up in Alaska, we were like that with meat. I mean, it was most people living up there are stocking their own freezers the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
That's how we did it. And there's there's something to be said about knowing where your food comes from, whether you're vegetarian, carnivore, you like to hug cows, whatever your thing is. I mean, it's important to know where your food comes from and to meet your food or your food source face to face.
Right? You want to know. I want to know.
Yeah.
Like I just want to know. It bothers me, and it's amazing.
Detachment.
The flavor difference is remarkable. Like, putting aside any facts or theories or personal beliefs around the health benefits one way or the other, just looking at flavor, going out and getting like some elk meat from the forest versus buying some cow meat that's sitting vacuum sealed in plastic wrap is an entirely different flavor experience. And so it's different.
It really is. Moose burgers for the win. Avoid bear, tastes like shoe leather. Don't do that.
Yeah, bear's not that great. Bison I like quite a lot, and luckily you're able to get bison a little more often around here lately. It's kind of growing a bit more, but much more tasty.
Absolutely.
Henry William Waite asks, I'm going to a gaming LAN this weekend.
Ooh,
what are the
awesome.
best Linux games for a LAN party?
Oh my! For a LAN party.
This question really should have been last week when we had the Linux gamer on.
Yeah.
Doom is good.
Currently, Doom. Yeah, I guess you would want to go retro games. If you're self-hosting your own LAN, then really it's whatever will run, right? I mean, it doesn't matter.
I know.
I want to say like Unreal Tournament 2003 or something, like back when it was still Linux supported, because that was kind of my jam. That was kind of where I really.
Well, there's like Open Arena, Xenotix.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of first-person shooters that are good. There's the one that's kind of like the army-based one. That's pretty good.
Wolfenstein?
Yeah, that's right. There's the remade newer Wolfenstein. There's old Doom. Those sorts of games are all fun. Honestly, those are good ways to go. Now, there are some emulators that allow you to run like Super Nintendo games, multiplayer over a network. I've never tried it, but the idea of being in a LAN party playing like Mario Kart sounds kind of fun.
That would be kind of awesome.
I kind of want to try that now. I don't know how well it works, but I kind of want to try that.
It could be fun. Why not?
Can you talk about Intel bringing Thunderbolt 3 into its processors? Its advantages, disadvantages, and your personal preference. I cannot. Matt, can you?
Not intelligently. And I have not. I haven't even built a computer in the last 15 years, but I'm going to try. My only concern is how it. Anytime you're adding stuff to a processor's workload, I wonder how that might affect. And again, I'm not speaking with authority on this. I don't know, but I do wonder if that maybe has an impact or if they've compensated for that, or I'm not sure. We're so the wrong people to ask.
I know.
Squeeze a cow, have milk. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Squeeze a cow, have milk. That's my technical knowledge when it comes to processors.
That's my answer. Yeah, I don't have anything.
I am the wrong guy to ask on that. Arepo asks. Actually, you know what? Before I get to Arepo's question, Matt.
Yes.
Have you heard about Pogo Linux?
I have heard about Pogo
They're
Linux.
amazing.
They are awesome.
PogoLinux.com. Wait, if I sing the .com part of the Expedia.com jingle, is that like copyrighted? Am I gonna get in trouble for singing?
.com, like old death metal.
I don't know if I can do death metal. It's just not in me.
You gotta gargle some gravel.
That's pretty
Never
good.
really been my jam, but I know people like it.
At PogoLinux.com. Servers, awesome. Drives, awesome. Big storage clusters, awesome. Desktops, VR development workstations, all of those fingers all represent a bunch of different types of things you can buy over at PogoLinux.com. And these guys know big, giant hunks of metal. When it comes to having big racks filled with storage and compute clusters, Pogo Linux guys know it, and they've been shipping it all with Linux pre-installed, lots of Linux pre-installed, OpenSUSE, Red Hat Enterprise, Scientific Linux, Debian, CentOS. These guys got it. Wait, do they have Debian? I think they have Debian. They have a whole bunch. They've got drop downs. You can just choose your penguin. You choose the one you want and you go with it. PogoLinux.com sponsor this show along with System 76 and all of you crazy Patreon people because they're good people and they know what good entertainment is. And good entertainment has the word Linux in it. That's just how that works. Hey, before we switch away from this, Matt, what's your Patreon?
Yes. What's my Patreon?
Say your Patreon.
It is /Freedom Penguin.
Patreon
/Freedom Penguin.
And you can also go to freedompenguin.com, which is where Matt does all sorts of writing and whatnot. Which we should talk about more of the things you write, because you write some decent stuff.
Every once in a while.
Your words aren't garbage, man.
That's true. I try. I shoot for that. It's my goal.
Arepo. I'd love to see you guys discuss the future of Firefox, since its user base is so much smaller than Chrome's, but lately Mozilla seems to have been getting more aggressive in its marketing strategies. What would be the impact on the internet if Firefox disappeared?
Well, first of all, I want to address the more aggressive on their marketing strategies. No, they were more aggressive back when they did their video campaigns pre-YouTube.
I agree.
That was when they were aggressive. Now it's just a joke. Not Mozilla, but their marketing campaign. Their marketing campaign needs a lot of work. It needs to modernize, and there's just multiple things they need to work on in that capacity. So no, I disagree there. As far as them disappearing, honestly, I think they're already headed that direction. I'm not seeing evidence that they're and I'm running Firefox right now as a secondary browser. That's kind of what I have open right now.
Yeah.
But I think really they have to accept they're probably never going to get it on the speed, so they're going to have to try and compete on the privacy factor. I think I would cater toward an open source mentality and privacy and go that direction more and make that kind of their pedestal, because I don't think they have a prayer anywhere else. I think on speed, I think it's too little, too late. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't know.
So, I always hope I'm wrong. I've been using them since Firebird.
I see it.
So
honestly, yes, I really do like Firefox as a browser. I mean, my first browser was Mozilla. That was my first browser, or Mosaic. And I would love. I agree. I agree with Matt. I feel like they actually haven't been as intense as they should be in their marketing. I feel like that they haven't really stuck it to the man. They haven't really pushed on the privacy concerns with using Google Chrome, and they are significant. Honestly, if they just hammered away at that, I think Mozilla should partner up with other like-minded organizations like the Tor project and make Tor browser Firefox. Bring in Tor and make it so it's optional. So you just hit a button and it turns on all the Tor stuff. I think if they really want to be awesome and they really want to make a difference in the world, they need to reach out beyond the Mozilla organization and they need to do stuff like that. They need to be working with Tor and working with the EFF to basically produce the sanctioned browser for privacy in the modern age. And I think unless they do that, they're dead. Now, because realistically, if they just keep coming up with these Johnny-come-lately feature sets, like, let's come up with like a password sync thing, like what Chrome has, like, well, realistically, any feature that collects data is going to get hacked. So they're not going to be able to, eventually it's going to happen. They're going to get hacked. So,
Yep.
so there's no point in competing with Google on those merits. Let Google go down that road. Let Google get hacked.
Yeah.
Let all the Google users get pissed that all of their data has now been leaked to the NSA, all of whatever 16 other organizations in the United States alone that collect this data,
Exactly.
and every random hacker in their mom's basement.
Yeah.
I hate that that's a thing now. And they can't compete with that. It's just let Google screw themselves on that and thump on it. Videos, articles, speeches, be at every Linux conference, be at Microsoft's conference, go to build conferences and talk about the privacy, and talk about it until they die. And they will see a ballooning of interest because of it. They need to lead the charge. And not only are they not leading, they're barely following, in my personal opinion. And if they really wanted to be truly revolutionary, they do that and then release Firefox Lite. That is,
Yeah. There you go.
take an old rendering engine, something like HTML 401, like something old. I know this may sound crazy. Take something old,
A little bit.
rip a whole bunch of crap out of it. A bunch of websites won't even work with that old of a browser. But you know what it will do? It'll be friggin' fast as hell. It'll run like crazy. It'll be crazy fast, be super lightweight, and it will. And if it gains popularity, it would force web developers to have to develop web sites again instead of these big JavaScript-heavy web applications, which is most websites are. So make that sort of thing. I would use a Firefox Classic or a Firefox Lite or whatever you want to call it. I would use that as my main thing. Make it so that, YouTube plays and like certain kinds of videos from HTML5 plays, but otherwise don't bring in any of the HTML5 functionality. Make it an old school browser that might as well have been made in the year 2000. I would use that browser. It's weird. It's weird for sure, but it would be fast, and you could easily go out and say that it is the fastest browser currently made that's a GUI. And it would still maintain compatibility with most websites, but maybe not like Gmail and a few others. But I think it's worthwhile. It'd be at least
that's
different.
one approach. Yeah, I think I would even be happy if they made QP or QUP Zilla, that's super lightweight. If they made that an official option, that like it's like, oh, we see you're on a slower computer, slower connection, whatever it may be. Might we recommend that? I think by taking approaches like that, they begin to differentiate themselves, like you were mentioning.
Do something different.
Because it's a great browser. It's super lightweight, and it's unlike all the other lightweight browsers out there. It actually is a lightweight browser. It's actually noticeably using less memory.
You know what I think would be rad?
What's that?
Firefox for the shell. If they came out with terminal
W3M,
Firefox,
W3M, just hit the executable boof, right?
Right?
That could be cool.
I mean, it's not going to be able to support every whiz bang feature in HTML5, but it would be neat, and it would differentiate themselves. Every man, woman, and child is not going to use it, but if they had a classic and light version, if they had a lightweight but modern implementation version, if they had a command line version, and then they had the full-blown Torified, super privacy version, and people could go and be like, man, if you want a browser, no matter what browser you want, Mozilla makes it. And then you're giving people choice, you're giving people privacy, you're giving people speed, and you're doing it in an open source community way. There's so many things they could do, and they're not doing any of them. And that is a real bummer to me.
And I think that's just it. Stop. They've lost on speed. That ship sailed. Whatever they're doing now it's just a moot point because it's still using tons of resources. I think you got the right idea. By going with that approach, it may, in fact, whittle down some of the non-geeks. It may not. It's hard to say. But I would say the people that care about privacy and people that care about being able to run something in less than 500 megabytes of RAM, just for a single page or whatever, or gigabyte in some cases. I think people would really dig that. I would love W3M and just something I could just boop, boop. That'd be cool.
Right? FF.
That'd be neat.
Just run FF from the terminal, FF to, whatever, FF to reddit.com, and you've got a full browser, inline images, lightweight JavaScript, like you get the whole works in a terminal in a frame buffer. That would just be, I know it would only appeal to like a subset of the world, but it would be so cool.
I think the privacy side of it would appeal to most of Europe right now, and I think
Right?
probably, yeah, I think so.
I
really
just
think
think that
so.
would be neat.
So,
Mozilla, if you're
yeah,
listening, and I know you are, I know for a fact you are. I know all of your upper leadership is listening right now.
yeah,
Do that. And if you don't
seriously.
want to do that, at least for the love of God, do something. All right, let's switch over to
Right, man.
Twitter because we've been getting all these questions from
Oh
Mastodon.
yeah.
By
All
the
right.
way, man, Mastodon, the user interaction over on Mastodon is just skyrocketing lately. People are really,
Yeah, no,
really using the
and I finally got
platform.
mine set up, so that's
Nice,
or
nice job.
yeah, finally, yeah.
Heads up high over on Twitter asks, "What's your experience with NVIDIA blobs?" Well, I kind of told that at the beginning accidentally, but yeah,
Yeah,
I had a little problems with it under Arch, but otherwise, I haven't really
right.
had issues with it. So my only real concern is that it is binary blobs. I like having the source code, but
Sure.
man, I tell you, like with this laptop, this Oryx from System 76, it's
Hmm.
got the GTX card in it. The massive speed it gives me when I'm encoding video just
Yeah,
makes it worthwhile to have a binary blob there. And I think on most of my machines, I'd say it's not worth it. Like my like my little laptop I'm carrying around with me. I'm building a little
right.
briefcase machine that has like a laptop inside of it essentially. For that sort of scenario, for my daily writing and correspondence, I don't like having any binary blobs if I can avoid them. But for
Sure.
video production and hardcore gaming, it's kind of worth it. I mean, it sucks. We got to try and get NVIDIA over to the open source side of things a little bit more at some point, but
Yeah.
the performance is worth it. And the only time I've ever had a real problem with it was just that one time under Arch, and I'm sure it was something I did. I don't think it
Yeah,
was
something
Arch's
in the
or
wiki.
NVIDIA's fault.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's hard to say. Hard to say. Yeah, I mean, for myself, I generally, if I'm going to be gaming on that system, I'll go proprietary. If battery life is consideration, I've never been able to really verify this, but I suspect that the open source stuff may not be quite as slick in that department. But I could be wrong. I've never really measured it.
like the
But
Nouveau drivers.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just it's because I'm doing power top and I'm doing
yep.
whatever the other power saving deal is. But yeah, so I mean, it's not really a big deal. But or TLP, that's what I'm looking for.
TLP.
So I do TLP and power top.
That
Yeah.
was the one I was
So
trying to
with
figure out
those, you
too.
probably don't care anyway. Yeah, it's too many letters.
Way too many letters.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. I mean, if you play
use what
if you
works
play
for you.
enough like hardcore games or do video encoding
Right,
on Linux,
right.
you almost kind of need to have at this
You
point
do.
an NVIDIA card with a binary blob. It is just kind of like the barrier to entry for certain types of functionality. If you don't need those types of functionality, you totally don't need an NVIDIA GTX card with the
Hmm.
binary blobs. It's no biggie. Like most of my
That's it.
machines are using like an Intel GPU with using open source drivers,
Right.
and they're
Well,
fine.
and if you're using Wayland, don't sweat it. That decision's already been made for you. So
Oh. Okay.
yeah,
Larry Dewey asks, will Brian Lunduke be using the awesome window manager? I don't know. Awesome's actually a pretty nice window manager, but I prefer
yeah.
Xmonad only ever so slightly. If you're going for the lightweight tiling window manager, I love Xmonad. I just love it to pieces. I don't know.
Right on.
You use just a normal desktop, right?
I
You're
do.
not a
I've
tiling
dinked with them a
guy.
little bit, and it's just kind of like, wow, this is unnecessarily convoluted. I don't know. I'm so used to the mouse nowadays. I think there was a time in my life it would have really appealed to me, but now it's just like, honestly, I just pick whatever works. You know.
Have you ever
So
tried rat poison?
no.
Do it.
I
Do
think I
it.
did once when I was a little kid. And
Do
I was
it.
under.
No, no,
Oh,
no,
you're
no.
talking about. Oh, you're
Yeah,
talking
the
about
window
okay.
manager. Rat poison. Install it and try to live
Yeah.
in it for a day.
Rat poison, huh?
It will be so amusing to me
Rat.
if you try and you try and subject yourself to that horror. It is awful. I like it's very rare. All desktop environments and window managers have their good points, like even if I
Yeah.
don't like them, like I don't like Unity, but you know what? It's got its strong points. It's got its things
Sure,
it's
and you
really
can
good
use
at.
it. Yeah.
And I can use
Yeah.
it and I can figure it out and other people like it and I see why they would like it. It's just not for me. Rat poison is awful. It is the worst thing that anyone has ever coded in
Right.
human history. Not because it's buggy, just because it was designed badly. And and
Yeah, I see an article you wrote on this here. Boy, you're
a
wow.
long
Okay.
time ago,
Yeah.
I hate it so much. And people who like rat poison, are religious about it. And
Yeah. Weird.
I just want to spread the word that it's horrible. And I just want to
Well, and
see people
apparently you
suffer.
hitting Control T about 50 bajillion
Oh
times
my
every
God.
day, according to this Brian
Oh
Lunduke
my
guy.
God. Yeah. Control T under rat poison. If you ever have run rat poison, you know what I'm talking about. It is
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
It is just the
Yeah.
worst.
No. No. Thanks.
Um,
No. 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 Thank you.
all right. Peter Jesse asks, not really Linux related, but will System
Okay.
76 release a laptop with AMD graphics? Um,
Ah. I can.
maybe.
I can actually speak to that. That was many years ago, 2008. Or actually, it may have been 2007 when I had this conversation with them. They were using AMD graphics at one point, and it was a bad time to be using AMD graphics. And so I had words with them at the time. It's like, hey guys, dig in your systems, but please, 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 reconsider that. And they actually got back to me and said, "Oh, okay. Well, this is definitely something we're taking seriously into feedback, so we appreciate that." And sure enough, short time later, they switched to NVIDIA. So my counter to you would be reach out to them, have that conversation
Yeah.
with them. They're very likely to listen. They're super cool about that.
They are really
So
cool about that stuff. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I would
realistically,
reach out to them.
yeah, reach out to them and tell
Yeah.
them what you're looking for. Like if you
Yeah.
specifically are looking at it and you're like, I like this desktop or laptop, but I'm concerned about binary blobs or NVIDIA,
Yeah.
or I would just prefer an AMD option. Reach out
Mhm.
to them and let them know, because they literally they take all that feedback in all the time, and they really are really open and
That
amenable
could be
to
an
it all.
option as a pull down thing in the future. You never know.
Right, right. And unless we talk to them about it, then they don't have any way of knowing that's what people want. So,
Exactly.
so
There
tweet
you go.
at them. Say,
They do
hey, you
listen.
know what? I really dig this model, but with an
Yeah.
NVIDIA, with an AMD card, it would be just cherry on top for me. And then they'll
Exactly.
take that into consideration, and they'll either tell you to go to hell, or they probably won't tell you.
No,
that.
they were super receptive. I was really surprised. I'd just been burned by another vendor, and yeah, they're very open about it. It's like, oh, this is cool. So yeah, because I think it just depends. They usually have rationale as to why they're going with what they're going with. And right now, NVIDIA is still kind of pulling ahead. So
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
right. I mean, it's the same
But-
thing with like Intel CPUs versus like an AMD
Exactly.
Ryzen. A lot of
Right.
people are looking at that like, ooh, maybe a Ryzen in a System 76 tower or something like that. You know what? Maybe that's something they would look at in the future. You know what? Honestly, System 76 are the kind of folks that if they thought it would make a great machine and that their audience would like to buy those machines, they'd put a RISC-V processor in. I mean, they're going to produce the machines that they think are good ideas to produce. They're nerds.
Exactly.
They're hardware and software nerds. And when you go there, like when I was there at their offices, when you talk to them, they're hardware and software nerds. They want to build machines that they like, not that use a particular brand name or anything like that. They don't seem to care much about that.
And one of the reasons why people say, well, why do they always use Intel stuff? It's because my 2008 laptop from them still runs in 2017 because of the choices they made in 2008.
Yeah, they made good calls.
Exactly. They're making long-term calls. Exactly. That's it.
This next question I've saved till near the end because I think it's the best. Thomas Sumbler over on Twitter asks,
all right,
has anyone tried selling naming rights to free software in the way that universities sell naming rights to buildings? Like this is the, Brian Lunduke Hall. If not, should they? I thought this was friggin' brilliant. Like
the Brian Lunduke arcade, like classic arcade. I mean,
right.
That'd be kind of cool.
So the universities in part fund new construction and whatnot by selling naming rights, either for perpetuity or for a window of time.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean they don't really call it selling that. It's just like they put a plaque up and name it that in exchange for a handsome donation. But really that's kind of what it is. So what if you and me banded together to produce a terminal-based web browser, and we need like a year and a half to 2 years of runway money to hire a couple of developers to work full time on it in order to do it.
Right.
Someone comes along, let's say Donald Trump says, okay, I want to fund your terminal-based web browser. We can call it Trump browser. The Donald Trump web browsing experience in exchange for a couple $1 million.
Click here to close. Yes. Okay. Sure.
But you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Exactly.
just taking a
'Cause you
donation
can
in
do powered
exchange for
by.
naming.
You can do
Yeah.
power. Powered by is a really, because then it kind of hints at interest. You want to check them out a little more. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't
Powered
know.
by their money, but whatever. Sure.
What do you think? Is that something that's a
I think
good
it's,
idea?
I think it's a cool idea. I think it's a really cool idea. I think it really depends on how it's worded and how it's presented, and if you can get people to actually give them at least a little bit of attention. So, like when you go to a sports sports ball or whatever it is, and you look around at all sports ball, all the various sponsorships and whatnot. I never felt like that was done very efficiently, and I think this could be done in a more efficient way by making it a little more on task. So maybe it's powered by IBM or powered by
the Pepsi web browsing experience,
right? No, seriously, Mountain Dew or something, right? I mean, like powered by Jolt Cola. I mean, that would definitely, right?
Yeah.
Pixie sticks and Jolt Cola. I mean, I'm telling you, man, that right there. I'm serious.
The Gummy Bears office suite. Yeah, it's. I mean,
Right?
I mean, the reality is, I mean, what does it matter what they're called? I don't care what the name is.
It doesn't matter.
If I'm using Firefox, do I care that it's called Firefox? No, it's a stupid name for a web browser anyway. Firefox? Yeah. What does that have to do with a web browser, really?
Lighting canines on fire? I don't really understand That's terrible.
Right. As long as the names don't mean anything anyway. Why not just let someone else name it for you, and you get in exchange to fund yourself building an amazing piece of software? That actually seems like a brilliant idea to me. If anyone's seen any examples of someone doing this, let us know. Tweet it to us, put it in the YouTube comments, Patreon, whatever, because I would love to talk about it. I would love to point at it and see if it actually worked, because I think that's a fantastic idea. It's like corporate sponsorship. It's not even corporate sponsorship. It's donation. It's more like the school model where you donate.
It's like you look for folks that are about to just get reamed on taxes, and they're looking for a quick
Yes,
a quick way to kind of get those write-offs out. A little bit like Radio Shack was for Tandy, which is historically actually true, at least toward the end there.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting idea, because that's a pain point where the corporation cares. And they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, and it makes us look pretty badass.
It does.
All right, sure, why not?
It does, right? I think it's really a good idea.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, why not? It's kind of like TV shows used to be. Like back in like the 1930s, you'd have things like your Show of Shows and whatnot here in the United States, and they didn't necessarily have a whole bunch of commercials. They'd have one corporate sponsor. Like it would be like the Kellogg's Friday night, or it'd be like the Kellogg Hour or something like that. And it would just be a corporate sponsor, a company, or sometimes it would just be some rich old dude.
Yeah, well, classic radio did it best. Classic radio did it best because you still had the same people that did the Lone Ranger with all the bells and whistles, but they would use the same materials, the clanking of glass and all that sort of stuff, to do these commercials, and it sounded awesome.
It did.
It really was. It was a cool idea.
Right? It was really, really neat. I think that's a great way to go. I personally think it's just totally, totally rad. Or what? It's kind of like you watch the Ben Heck show sometimes.
Ben Heck.
Ben Heckendorf. He does like builds. He does like cool like hardware projects. Like he took like an Apple II GS and he hacked it into a laptop. Right. Things like that. That's awesome. But his show is, I believe, sponsored by Element 14. And when they start the show, it actually says Element 14's Ben Heck Show.
There you go.
So it's very old school in that way, and I think that could really work for free software projects.
Yeah,
and as soon as the corporate sponsor wants to pull out, then their name comes off of it. But as long as they're sponsoring it, that's just like it's their stadium, that's their hall in the college, it's their free software web browser.
Yeah, seriously.
I think it's great. I would have no qualms with that. Like if I loaded up Firefox and it would be like Pepsi presents Firefox. Like that's fine.
Well, it beats being locked into a default search engine like some Linux distros will do when you install them and they come with Firefox. I never cared for that. So I definitely have that as a preference for sure.
I just think that would be really neat.
Makes sense.
I think that's really neat. All right, the final question. All right, here we go.
Okay.
What is, and this is from Tibike Miklos.
All right.
What is a fully free machine nowadays with reasonable specs for development? Because I've seen that the newer Intel and AMD chips have proprietary drivers,
Ugh.
also the newer video cards. Are the only options the Pentium chips and the older Lenovo ThinkPads and the like?
That
So
I couldn't tell you for sure on the hardware side of it, especially. That's, I mean, you may have to do your research on hardware and then check out eBay.
so here's the thing.
I don't
So
know.
newer Intel chips do have little binary bits in there, little backdoors, right? They just do.
Yeah.
We know that for a fact. So if that's a no go for you, and I understand why completely, and going with an open platform like a Risk V is a no go, and I understand why that would be, because finding a Risk V workstation is not an easy thing, and nor is it cheap. If those are both no goes for you, you've got to go kind of older hardware, and not that much older, but like I believe it's the ThinkPad 220.
There
I
you go.
believe is the
Yeah.
model that you can put the LibreBoot, the free and open source BIOS replacement on there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what a lot of people like from the Free Software Foundation or the Software
Right.
Freedom Conservancy, that's what they'll run. And they are older bits of hardware. I mean, the nicest one of those you're going to find is a tiny fraction of the speed of the lowest end System 76 or Pogo Linux machine
Yeah.
that's even
Yeah.
sold. And so you are going to be on a much slower machine. My
Hmm.
personal thoughts on that, I don't like some of the new things going on with Intel, so I hope that some going forward additional processor types become a little bit more prevalent.
Hmm.
There are
Hmm.
far fewer concerns going with something like ARM. There still are concerns, but there are far fewer. So if you're really concerned about that and you're already willing to go with slower machinery,
Hmm.
honestly, I personally like I don't see a problem with basing a computer off of a Raspberry Pi cluster.
Yeah.
Personally. But that said, you can go with like I think it's a ThinkPad 220. Look it
Yeah.
up. Over on the Free Software's Foundation's website, they have a list of hardware that I believe is compatible with LibreBoot.
Yes. Hmm.
Go with that, and there are sellers that are focusing on only machines with that in mind. Also, Purism sells hardware that only has the free and open source bootloaders, BIOSes, and all that. Not bootloaders, but BIOS, and that will make that a little bit better as well. But honestly, there's no easy way around it because each computer has parts from
Yeah.
so many different vendors. It's very difficult to be assured 100% that everything in there does not have any backdoors, does not have any undocumented bits
Sure.
in it. It's just really
Sure.
hard to do. So you do your best. At the very least, your software stack is free. And that's really the most critical bit because the reality is, if you get really tricky with your software stack, you can make it so any of those hardware backdoors would have limited viability.
Exactly.
They
Wall
still
out.
would have some, but have a nice firewall, sandbox all of your apps. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
the hardware still has access to it, but in order for it to be useful, they have to know exactly what they're looking for. And if you're running all free and open source software, you're encrypting your home directory, you're putting everything in sandboxes, you're making sure that you're going through a firewall that doesn't allow any connections on ports that you don't
Yep.
specifically want connections on. It doesn't allow outgoing calls unless you specifically say so.
Yep.
If you notice and you pay attention to your traffic on your router and your firewall, and if you notice any significant bits of data going somewhere you don't know where it is, block that IP, block that whole subnet, block it. And then at that point, you're pretty safe anyway, even if there is a little bit of a backdoor or a bit of a
Right.
binary blob in your CPU. So
Exactly.
it sucks. It totally sucks. It's a sucky situation. No, none of the big hardware vendors, System 76, Pogo, Dell, any of them really have anything to do, as far as I can tell, with any of this. So what we're really looking at is the chip level. So mostly it's Intel, Broadcoms, and the like. But if we take steps, you can kind of keep yourself mostly safe. So it's not so bad. All is not lost in doom and gloom, I suppose.
Well, two things that come to mind. If you care about it in the here and now and you're willing to make some concessions, Crowd Supply's got a few options you can check out. There's
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think Penguin actually is featuring one of the better options laptop wise. Right now, they're actually talking about potential NSA free backdoor, free computer spawners, blah, blah, blah. Check out this crowdfunding campaign to deal with that. And it's actually the build your own laptop. So there are options among those. One thing I want, regardless of what you do, one thing I want you to understand, and I actually tested this theory out. No, I will not ever share this publicly because it's terrifyingly easy to do. You can actually, someone has physical access to your computer in about 20 minutes. It's not that hard to set up a software keylogger that shoots off data, everything you log, regardless, over port 80. It's stupid simple. And so physical access, you're kind of boned. But as far as any type of remote like access and that sort of thing, probably open source hardware is where you're going to want to be at. Crowd Supply, Think Penguin, they're actually promoting a specific crowdsource project. Check them out. That's probably where I would start.
Yeah, that's actually that's a really good point. That's a really good way to go. But hey,
you're gonna make some concessions.
Look at it on the other side. If you're not doing anything wrong, what do you have to hide?
Oh yeah, clearly.
That argument drives me friggin' crazy.
You know how you destroy that argument? Yes, you play a game of telephone. And then when it gets to the last person, say, okay, what was the original question? It's completely different. Same thing can happen with a perfectly legal, legitimate conversation. It can be misinterpreted based on a lot of different vectors and situations. And, what starts out very innocent can be misinterpreted, and you can end up in a world of scary. So,
right?
Yeah, well, I care.
I can't remember who said the quote at this point, and I might even be misattributed, but I had it in my "They're Watching You" presentation I did a month or two back. But the quote was basically, given enough information on someone, even if they've never committed a single crime, I can find a way to get them hanged. And it's true. If you can always twist someone's words or twist someone's data against them simply if you feel like you want to. And I mean, it's you hate to think that any of those sorts of things would happen. Yeah. But why not make sure they don't as best as you can? And that's kind of my thought. The reality is, data on us has been and is being collected all the time. We should just do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. And it's here we are. If you're watching this show, odds are you're watching it on YouTube, which means odds are you're subscribed to it on YouTube. And if you're not, you really should be. And if you're doing that, Google is tracking you. They know where you're at roughly, unless you're going through Tor or something like that, or a VPN, and which is a good idea to do anyway. And they know where you're at. They know what you're watching. They know when you're watching it, and at the bare minimum, and they know what operating system you're running, what browser you're running. They know an awful lot about you. And most browsers, and I don't know that most people fully realize this, most browsers have a very unique identifiable fingerprint.
They do.
And it is incredibly easy to identify you simply because you use the same browser. If I know your browser's fingerprint right now, if you go to lunduke.com and I see that your browser connected to my website, I know it's you. And so if I, in the back end, have access to other companies or other servers' information, I can see where you've been, where you're going, and what the hell you're up to. There are ways to obscure your browser's fingerprint. I'm not sure, does Privacy Badger from the EFF do that?
There's what is it, Ghost Tree or whatever. There's a couple of Firefox extensions.
There's a couple of them. Yeah.
Even just using a good ad blocker is a really good place to start.
It helps a lot.
It's not perfect. It's not foolproof, but I like uBlock Origin. It's good.
Yeah.
That's one option.
That is a good option. And you know what? And the side effect makes your web pages load faster.
It really does.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with that. Anything that blocks a whole bunch of asynchronous, stupid friggin' JavaScript calls makes everything go faster, because JavaScript is the devil.
It really is.
Man.
You ever get one of those things where it's like, problem loading script, continue or stop, popping up in your browser on a very robust machine. I've seen that happen, usually in Firefox.
You know what would be great?
Sometimes on Chrome.
It'd be great, a great Firefox feature. Every time a JavaScript function is happening, it measures how much CPU load and memory it's got, and measures how long it's been taking, and it puts it all up on the side and says, this thread is stupid and slow. Do you want me to kill it?
and just gives you the option. It's not hung. It's just taking up more time than it should. So let's just kill it. All right. Like I would love that feature. Right? And like you could set like a threshold. Like if it takes more than a megabyte of RAM, kill it. I don't want it. Like force JavaScript developers to write functions that act quickly and load small amounts of data, you know, instead of these big awful libraries where you end up loading. Do you see the average website size was it 5 megs now? Something like that.
It's got to be more than that.
No, well, that's just the average, or something like that. I just wrote an article on this for Network World, and it just blew my mind because I was feeling like complaining about how slow websites were. So I started going to some. If you go to networkworld.com, and look around. I wrote an article called "Make the Web Better by Killing JavaScript" or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And I was looking at it, and it was amazing how much it's grown just in the last couple of years. So in the last 6 months, it's grown by 0.5 megabyte on average. Every website on the internet has grown by a 0.5 meg. Now, 0.5 meg ain't a lot, but if you grow by 0.5 meg every 6 months, oh my God, we're not that far away from having most websites be 10 megs in size. And so I went to the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, and I'm like, well, let's compare CNN.com, right?
Oh, seriously? Seriously, yeah.
God. I challenge anyone to do that. Go to CNN.com today, and then go to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, which is notorious for loading slowly because it's pulling all this huge amounts of data from old websites, and they're half broken because APIs are broken and whatnot. But go for like a 5-year-old CNN.com.
Seriously.
You'll notice 2 things. The first is that there was just as much, if not a little bit more, actual information 5 years ago on CNN.com, and the new one is almost 10 times the size and it takes about 10 times longer to load.
Seriously. Well, it's all ad servers. It's garbage.
It's garbage.
It's bad.
Yeah, so Matt's right. uBlock Origin or Privacy Badger or any of the other ad blockers are great. Well, not all of them, but find a good one that the EFF gives the thumbs up on, and just block those suckers. It does make everything so much faster. Why are we even talking about this? I don't know, but I feel it was important.
Well, I'll throw you one more. I'll throw you guys one more tip. And by no means does this mean you're going to be like you're never going to avoid a 3-letter agency. I don't care what you do. But if you want to avoid at least like your ISP snooping, let's just put it that way. If you get yourself a trusted VPN, I like private internet access. You go to Walmart or wherever, you buy yourself the gift card with cash, and you take said gift card and then you buy yourself a year's subscription of PIA, a private internet access.
Yep.
They actually were tested in an audit by a 3-letter agency. They do not keep logs. So based on all those factors, outside of the camera you peer down at the store, that's about as private as you're going to get next to Tor.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So if you don't want to go the Tor route and you want to just use more of a traditional internet experience, there you go.
Yeah, and and if you get a good one like that, your speed really isn't that reduced.
Oh man, it's great. And they got native Linux client, dude. I mean, it's native as hell.
That's nice. That's really, really nice.
I mean, it really works too. Auto kill switch and all, everything.
And it really, really works.
Yes.
That is just pure awesome. All right.
All right.
We have talked enough. We have talked enough. The end is here.
The end is nigh.
So various other stuff coming up. So tomorrow, the Lunduke Labs update number 2 video will be out. We got some pocket chip stuff in there. Got some, let's see, do I have it right here?
Drawer of goodies. Oh, you got a drawer of goodies. I'm jealous.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about my handheld
my
gaming project.
My nephew's so going to be drooling over that.
Oh, I'm having so much fun
with that. He wants one of those so bad. Yeah, let me know how hard that is. I'm curious.
Well, the price for me building a Pi Girl 2, assuming you've got a good 3D printer,
I do not,
and whatnot, is less than $100. It's and you end up with a handheld that is capable of emulating Nintendo 64s and Dreamcasts and PlayStation 1s and. I mean, it's basically the world's most amazing handheld ever. I've still got a bit of work to do, as you can see, but we have an update in tomorrow's show. Next week is all in flux. I had one guest who was going to be on Monday that got moved to the week after. A few weeks out from from next week, about a month out, I'm going to be having on, I believe, basically the two top dogs from the Linux Foundation, Jim Zemlin and Micah from over at the Linux Foundation. They're going to come on the show, and we'll get a bunch of questions from you guys, basically to ask them about everything the Linux Foundation is doing.
Nice.
Nice. Good, bad, all of it, whatever questions you guys have, we can just ask them, because there's,
Excellent.
like the Linux Foundation, I think, is kind of nebulous to a lot of people. Like, it's got the foundation name for our favorite kernel, but outside of that, I think a lot of times we don't fully know like how it's organized, what projects they're working on, where are the funds going. I mean, we know like Linus and Greg KH and many of the kernel hackers work there, but how does that work? I think people would love to just sit down and know. So if you have any questions for them, like, what are you guys working on? Anything, let me know. We've got about a month to pull together the best questions, and we'll talk to them when they're on the show. And I'm just trying to think. I don't have any guests for next week to announce now, because everything is all wiggity weird and everything got all rescheduled. But
wiggly weird.
But hey, good stuff coming up just the same. Anything you'd like to shout out before we head off into the sunset, my glorious Hartley friend?
Check out freedompenguin.com, and of course check out the Patreon. I think that's really it. It's Patreon/freedompenguin.
Beautiful.
Go there. Put up a video here recently, even. That was something. So
I've been thinking about this a bit, and I love that people like you, and like the Linux Gamer and myself and a whole bunch of other people are having these Patreon pages set up. As I'm watching it, and this doesn't apply so much to like Linux and tech news as it does outside of our bubble. When you get into actual journalism, more and more, I'm having a hard time of knowing in the news, and we'll avoid getting political about this, but who to trust. So often, there are issues where one media outlet will have a source for information, but they'll burn that source by exposing them. So then a person will get arrested. Or if it comes to light that a news organization that you were trusting, it turns out they were actually working with specific political parties, whether it agrees with you or not, you're going, well, now I don't know if I can really trust their objectivity. I don't know if they're really putting all their cards on the table for me anymore. And what I'd like to see more of is just full independence. And I love that full independence. It's really nice. I feel like we in the Linux world have been a little isolated from it because our sponsors, people like, the System 76s, the Pogos, the whatnot, they're us. And because they're us and they sponsor people like us, they expect that we're going to go hop on the air and possibly let an F-bomb slip out and probably be technically wrong about one or two things, but try and correct it later. Like they know that we're going to be opinionated, and they like that and appreciate it. But just the same, it's nice to know that, the community has your back and the community supports what you do. And I love what you guys are doing over at Freedom Penguin. You guys have had some pretty good articles there over the last month. It's definitely been worth checking out.
Some of my writers subscribe to, and I do as well, or at least used to subscribe to the John C. Dvorak School of Journalism, and that's to when you need some eyeballs, just poke really hard at something popular, and and he's on video actually admitting this, so this is legitimate. John, if you see this, it's real. So, and he knows that, so it's totally fine. But we go from the opinionated to also some of the how-to stuff. I found historically, and this is something I want to talk about a little bit at some point, is you will get far more traction and eyeballs with an opinion piece than you will with the most elaborate, awesome how-to in the world. Now, that differs in video. In video, it's the opposite. But when it comes to text, oh yeah, absolutely. If Brian rails on whatever it is, network world, that he's going to get great eyeballs on that, and people are going to be excited and exchange ideas. And no, I disagree, or yeah, you're right on, or whatever it is. You're going to get a lot of great exchange there. But with how-tos, it's not so much. So we've definitely been kind of changing it up a little bit, going different directions, which sucks because I had some pretty elaborate how-tos.
No, it's good.
It's frustrating.
It is. Like, oh my God. I do get what you're saying, though. It can be frustrating sometimes. Like if you look at this show and you look at the traffic spike moments, like I did when Ubuntu announced that they were going to ditch Unity, I did a video version of this show. I think I titled it Ubuntu Obeys Lunduke.
Yeah,
It was just,
seriously.
I mean, and it was
Brilliant,
clearly
though,
a bit
yeah.
over the top, right? And it was just
Totally, yeah,
goofy and but a highly opinionated. Like it was factual, but it was goofy and
Yeah,
opinionated.
right.
And that, I don't remember what it was, but that one got like 4 or 5 times the normal traffic
Yep.
that I get for this show. So what I try and
Yep,
do is
yep.
I try and make sure, like this week, you know, the Lunduke Labs one is very how-to-y. It's very DIY, hands-on. And then like I do the review for like Arca OS. It's very just hands-on, factual, with maybe a few anecdotes thrown in. But
Yes.
yeah, in order to keep the traffic high, you do kind of gotta John C. Dvorak / Rush Limbaugh it and
Yeah,
have
really.
just like
Seriously.
a crazy opinion sometimes. And you don't want to make the opinion up, but it's almost like you have to turn the filter off. Like,
Yeah.
like
You really do.
You're
Yeah.
like, okay, once a week I have to either have an article or a video where I just turn off my common sense filter for a minute and I just spout my unfiltered, crazy Lunduke or Hartley opinion
Yeah.
out on the internet,
Right,
just to
right,
kind
right.
of like get the eyeballs. And that is kind of sad in a way that you kind of do that. We have to do that sometimes, but
Yeah.
just the same, it's also kind of cathartic for me.
Well, and the thing to remember when you read these, at least from Brian and I both, is there are honest opinions.
Yeah.
They're just unfiltered.
I never make it up.
You know.
Never.
Yeah, it's unfiltered.
Never
and,
make it up.
and genuinely, you know, we try to kind of come full circle to a reflective point, or
Yeah.
maybe we can go this way forward, or try and come something positive out of it, or at least an alternative or whatever it is. So it's not just to dog on something or
Yeah.
to talk something up. We always disclose our NDAs or our NDAs, our associations with various companies and whatnot. So, you know, we're always clear with stuff. We're not trying to finagle anything. But yeah, I mean, to survive in this ecosystem, you do have to, you know, you gotta give a little. It's a
Somewhat related topic. Do you have a couple minutes? Can I
Yeah,
keep
totally,
you
man.
for 2
Go
or 3
for it.
more minutes?
Sure.
Were you following the Twitter thread earlier this week where we were talking about having diversity on the Lunduke Hour? Did you follow any of that?
No.
So this is something I'd been thinking of for a while. If you look back over the Lunduke Hour officially launched, was it mid-January? Something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, and since then the traffic's been jumping up, and you know, we've had some amazing guests on. No women at all. I have not had a single female on the Lunduke Hour. I mean, on our old show, you and me, we did, but it just happened to be that way, and it hadn't.
Right.
Like I had realized it, but I hadn't fully like sat down and thought about it. And someone mentioned it to me on
Right.
Twitter, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I would love to see more diversity of all kinds on the Lunduke Hour. That's a great thing, right? But I'm like, and so I mentioned this like just kind of as an offhanded comment. I'm like, you know what? Here's my thoughts. I'm just kind of musing out loud here. First,
Yeah, right.
I'd love to have more diversity. I would love it
course.
if it was a lady right here on this screen.
Yeah.
Not a Hartley. Like, it doesn't have to always be a Hartley. It can be a lady too.
And preferably me not dressed as a lady, because I probably wouldn't carry that over well.
Probably not.
Probably not. So that would be.
But on the other hand,
yeah.
I also don't want to invite someone on the show just because they're a lady. You know what I mean? Or just because they are from an identifiable minority group of any kind, right?
Well, we both know someone right now, if you stop and think about it for a minute, who not only blows us out of the water as far as the knowledge bomb, but is also happens to be a woman and happens to be a writer and happens to have we'll talk more about it later. But yeah, I mean, I mean, flat out knows more than both of us put together any day of the week.
I can think of a lot of ladies that know a whole hell of a lot
I mean,
more than
one
we do,
specifically
man.
comes to mind who would be just absolutely fantastic.
Well,
I agree with you. I definitely think that should happen.
I think it should happen, but I don't want to invite someone on just because of that. And it's
no.
The show
But
hasn't
I
been
mean,
going.
strictly from the knowledge aspect of it too.
Yes,
you know?
but like it's like I want to have,
and that's the twist. It's like once you put it out there, then anything you do feels like it's just because of that purpose.
Yeah.
And then that becomes
I don't want it
that
to be
becomes a
that.
problem.
Yeah. Like and so anyway, so I put that out there, just kind of musing on it, and part of my thought for that was hoping that, because I know, like on Twitter, a lot of truly just remarkable ladies follow me, right? I mean, they're just amazing. That kind of makes it sound like they stalk me, but they're following me on Twitter, like just some really amazing
fans,
women,
whatever,
that I see at tech conferences every year and whatnot.
Yeah.
Things that people that I've done like video projects with and whatnot in the past. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe me putting this out there will be a way to like nudge them to like toss me a direct message or an email or something. Because I don't want to like just reach out to them and be like, hey, there's a lack of females. I sure would like a female. Like, it feels weird. And so I'm like, you can get a hold of me, because most people, I don't reach out to most people. Most people on this show reach out to me. And so that's just how it normally works. And so I thought they'd reach out to me. The exact opposite happened. Like 3 or 4 people.
Oh, no.
And 3 or 4, 1 or 2 of them being very well-known people within the diversity in tech movement, I'll just say,
Sure.
just got pissed off at me. And they started yelling at me on Twitter and saying things like, oh, so you specifically will never have a woman on your show. I'm like, no.
That's literally not what you said.
Right.
So I don't understand. I'm not really sure.
And
I mean,
they
I mean, totally agnostic on this. I'm just looking. It's like,
they got pissed.
are you
They
just
got
trying
pissed.
to pick a fight? What? Okay.
And it's, oh man, it's such a bummer. No, and here's the funny thing. And what follows now, the following words may be viewed as not politically correct by some. That's just factual the way it is. The reality is, my first and foremost thing on this show is to produce a show I'm proud of. The second thing is to produce a show that lots of people watch, so I can keep making more of this show. If I want lots of people to watch it, and this may be sexist, in fact, I feel like it is.
I'll call you on it if it is. Don't worry about it.
It is. But if I replace Matt Hartley here with a attractive female, my viewer numbers are going to skyrocket. That's just the fact.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to stand
sexist
with you on that
feeling.
one, because there's a specific YouTube channel that used to frustrate me because of that. And what was worse about it is that the person I'm thinking of specifically, who was, definitely, I'm sure, benefited from that. But the sad part of it is that she was very knowledgeable, very, very, very skilled.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I don't, and I don't feel like she was seen as that. I feel like people were seeing it more as, it'd be like if I was a really studly, toned out, good looking dude.
Yeah.
The kind of man my wife would want to see walking, doing construction and whistle at. See, and if I reverse this, it's not a sexist anymore. My wife and my wife's best friend are whistling at whatnot. If I was that, I would be looked at as that object, and that sucks.
Right.
But it's true. I mean, I think as a society, we've kind of ended up in that pothole.
Yes.
And so we got to find a way to dig our way out of that.
Yes.
And I think really looking at people that have the knowledge and the insights and the experience, and they happen to be women or men. Hey, that's great. If my dog knew a thing about Linux, I would totally get my dog Murphy up here
and again,
representing the canines.
Put an adorable dog right here instead of Matt Hartley.
Right? Seriously, cat videos
goes
cat
right
videos,
up.
Seriously,
it's true.
Cat videos. And my cat, if I put my cat in front of something running Linux, that's going to outdo me in YouTube any day of the week. It just will. Outdo Brian.
So really,
because it's a cat.
If someone is on the internet saying Lunduke needs to just get more women on the show, what you're really saying is that you're anti-Hartley. That's racist.
Well,
that's racist.
Well, exactly. It's like, I've been to the gym. I'm sorry. I'm going to shower later. I know I stink. What do you want? It's like,
anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So, the funny thing is, so there will be, I'm sure there will be, many people of all walks of life, all genders and ethnicities and religions. I have no idea what religion anyone who's been on this show is. I genuinely have no idea, because none of that stuff matters to me, right? It's just when I wanted to talk more about pocket chips, what did I do? I reached out to the company that makes pocket chip and said, hey, give me a person. I did not know who they were going to send me. Turns out it was a white male. And I get it. There's an overabundance of white males in what we do. I totally get that, and I hate for it. The thing is, I never want this show to go political. I want it to focus on the nerdiness. I want it to focus on the tech. I want to focus on the cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so I am going to stand firm and say, I am not going to invite anyone on this show because of their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, any of that. That's not going to ever enter into it. Period. End of story. My entire logic for having people on the show are they doing something that's neat? And B, do we speak the same language, thereby being able to converse with them? Like that's the only two things.
And will they, and also will they tolerate us? I mean, that's also a thing.
Oh yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of people that just
most people doesn't. Most people won't tolerate us, so it's okay. Everybody hates us equally. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. It's in the whole Twitter exchange. It was very confusing to me, and it ended up with a person actually blocking me on Twitter.
It's very disheartening. I've run into that myself, and I almost immediately nowadays, as soon as something like that happens, I just simply have to walk away.
Yeah.
And thing to remember, and I want people to understand this, and I think Brian certainly shares this as well. My wife is a strong woman. She is no nonsense. She will, it's not like it's not like we're not into strong women. We are. It's a matter of, are they involved in a project or whatever it is we're doing that corresponds with that particular episode?
Right.
If they are, cool. If they're not, whatever.
Yes, that is exactly so. Like my wife is a software developer. She graduated like summa cum laude and something. IT.
My wife's smarter than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah, my wife's way smarter than I am. And that's just the fact of the matter. My daughter is an incredibly nerdy girl, and I would love to have more astoundingly powerful nerdy women on this show, if for no other reason than to let my daughter have more women in these sorts of industries to look up to. That's awesome. I love that. Exactly. So someone very well-meaning, I should point out, on Twitter was like, hey, you know what? I'll have some ideas for good nerdy women that you could have on the show. I'm like, all right. And I just wasn't really thinking about it. And then he sends me an email. And that email is a list of women. And I had to stop myself because this random guy on the internet that I don't know just emailed me a women list.
Yeah, that's a little. I mean, I guess their intent is innocent, but right. And what is the opener to that? It's like, again, reverse roles. Pretend like you're a man to a man or a woman to a woman in this particular case, and you're some random stranger reaching out saying, "Hey, a stranger emailed me a list, and you happen to be on it. Hey, want to do a show?" I mean, it sounds weird for any gender or person.
Yeah, it really is.
It gets a little creepy. So,
and the list they sent me, like half of the list, it was a great list. I should point out that the list that this guy sent me
was qualified.
and like probably not quite half, but close to half of the ladies on the list are friends of mine. That
helps.
And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, this is great. I mean, I agree. These are astoundingly talented ladies. Nerdy as all get out. Man, I mean, at least a couple of these ladies could code circles around me.
Right.
So yeah. But on the other hand, a random stranger on the internet just emailed me a list of women. That is the creepiest feeling thing. And so I replied back to the guy. I'm like, look, you meant well on this. Let's never talk about this again. And now I'm talking about it on the video. But I'm like, let's pretend like this didn't happen because that is creepy, dude. We got to just
full
not
disclosure. You're making it public. I think it's healthy. I think it's important to have that dialogue with your audience. Yeah,
I couldn't help it. It was amusingly creepy. Like, I'm just like, okay, I can't do that. Creepy. So you know what? Over the course of June, is it June now? It's June. Maybe there will be women on this show. Maybe there will be various ethnic minorities on this show. Yeah. I have absolutely no idea. I have no objection or agenda to push it to happen. However, what I can guarantee is there will be more nerdy people on this show all week, every single week, and we will continue to talk about nerdy things no matter what else happens. End of story. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
There will be no cat videos. We don't do cats on the show.
That is cheap. There will be. You notice down here in the corner, there's a little doggy. There might be a little.
My American Bulldog is representing back there. He does use Linux, by the way. That's important to note.
Good dog.
And he's representing the canines. So.
Good dog. What's your dog's name?
That's Murphy. And then there's a little black one off to the side, Madison. So nice. American Bulldog, Pit Bull mix, and then a little Boston Terrier.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So corners of dogs, but that's it. That's as that's as far as we're going.
Looking
down
up
the-
at me like, what the? Who the hell are you
No
talking
cats.
to? Yeah.
No cats.
No
No,
cats.
no
No, he's
hamsters
never-
either. No hamsters.
None of that.
No.
No hamsters. Oh, we don't do hamsters.
We don't do
No,
hamsters
no
here.
hamsters.
Did you know
No.
that
Gerbils-
that's the thing I'm the most allergic to in the whole world? Is hamsters.
Really?
Yeah, they
Really?
did. You know those
Wow.
back pricking tests they can do for allergies,
Yeah,
where they like
yeah, yeah,
prick
yeah.
your back and they put like little
Oh, yeah.
drops of like grass and pollen on it to see how your
Yeah,
back
I have
reacts.
one of those.
They did one in the middle of my back. With like 30 or 40 things, and one of them was hamsters, and the hamster swell encompassed almost my whole back. Turns out, basically, if I have a
Wow.
hamster, I could die.
So yeah,
Hamsters.
hamsters are a nope. So
Hamsters are no. At
yeah.
this
Hamsters
point,
are no.
we are no longer talking about anything Linux related. Matt, have an awesome
Good new
week.
hamster. Yeah, you too.
I will see you next week at this time. Do I got you
Yeah,
next week? Are you here next week?
Next
probably?
week. Yep, I will be here next week.
All right. I mean, if not, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I should be good. I don't
understand.
think I have anything going on.
You don't always
it
want to
should be
hang
fine.
out with Brian. It's cool. It's cool. But
Yeah,
again,
that's it.
everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you
appreciate
thank you to our sponsors, System 76 and Pogo, for all of the great content you guys enabled all week long
Yes.
this week and for the weeks to come. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. You can find the links to the Patreon pages, YouTube videos, my website. And if you want the audio version of this show, go to my Patreon page and be any level of support, even like the cheapest, whatever, nothing level is fine. And then you get an audio RSS feed. So you get the audio podcast. It's delightful. And no matter what, you can just watch me on YouTube for free. It's no
There it
big
is.
whoops. Everybody, thanks so much. And I'll see you back here tomorrow when I get to talk about all the toys I'm building.
Woohoo!
Adios.
Buzzes.